Hello and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. My name is Jess and I am excited to be here with you all today. But before we jump into our content, I have some basic information that I want to cover with you. All right, let's kick off our day here today by taking a quick tour of your audience console. And we're going to start with the questions window. So if you haven't already said hi, there is a whole audience of cool humans out there, so reach out and give a wave to the other members of the Actual Tech Media community. Now, keep in mind that if you do have any technical issues today, a browser refresh is going to fix just about anything. But if those tech gremlins are clinging on today, no problem. Just throw a comment in the question section and our crew will be there to help. We also want this to be an informative webinar for you, so throughout today's EcoCast, we hope you'll get engaged and ask all your burning questions. Not only will we have team members responding to you over a live chat, we will also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of our presentations. Now, if we don't get to your question during the live webinar today, don't worry, because the awesome experts that we have here with us will be following up after we wrap. All right, next up, there's going to be lots of cool aha moments on the EcoCast today. And if you want to share those with your community, we've made it nice and easy for you. You can use the Twitter button right there in your audience console, and the hashtag for today's EcoCast will be automatically added to your post. All right, our last stop on this guided tour, be sure to check out the handouts tab for some awesome resources and takeaways from our speakers here today. We have an info pack collection, solution briefs, white papers, data sheets, free trials, ebooks, upcoming webinars, and more. So many great resources, so be sure to go explore. Now, if that wasn't enough fun, we also have some exciting prizes that we'll be giving away throughout today's EcoCast. I'm going to tell you a bit more about those later on, but a few quick reminders for you all. First, you do need to be here live in attendance at the EcoCast in order to qualify to win a prize, and we will follow up with all of you after we wrap. Now, all winners must submit an IRS Form W-9 to Actual Tech Media, and all winners must meet the Actual Tech Media prize terms and conditions. Now, if you don't know what those full T's and C's are, that's fine. We've got the full thing for you. Just head on over to that handouts tab, click in, scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find them waiting for you there. Now, the absolute most important thing to remember is that we love getting all your insightful questions during these live webinars. In fact, we love it so much that we actually have a special additional prize for all you inquisitive folks out there. So in today's EcoCast, we will be giving away a prize for the best question asked in each of our live sessions. Now, the expert speakers and teams will review all questions asked after we wrap the webinar, which means that even if your question does not get read out in a live session, there is still a chance to win. If you are a lucky winner here today and you would like to donate the value of your prize, we have several wonderful organizations that we partner with. So let us know when we follow up about your big win, and we'll get that rolling for you. Again, we are so happy to have you all here with us live at the EcoCast today, and we want to keep that good feeling going, so let's connect on social media. Reach out and connect with Actual Tech Media on Twitter and on LinkedIn. We have lots of great content, and we always want to hear from you. Now, if you're looking for more awesome content and resources right after we wrap the EcoCast today, be sure to subscribe to the Actual Tech Media channel on YouTube. Another fun way to win a prize and, hey, grow this awesome community is to refer an industry friend or a coworker to the Actual Tech Media webinar series. Now, you'll find a link to do that right in your handouts tab, and you will also be automatically redirected at the end of the webinar. And both you and your coworker or friend could win a prize, and we hold those drawings every month. So be sure to refer a friend, because it could quite literally be a win-win situation. Next, we have a cool opportunity for all the decision makers out there to get connected with new and emerging tech and innovative vendors. Here's how it works. All you need to do is click on the link in your handouts tab, fill out a quick application, and the Actual Tech crew will then match you with some vendors that we think you should probably be chatting with based on your needs. There will also be fun opportunities that you get to choose to join in, like surveys, test runs, new solutions, extended demos, and so on. You'll get some chances to win extra prizes, you'll chat with great people, and you'll learn about the hottest new trends in tech. So be sure to apply, or hey, send that link to a decision maker on your team. Now, I want to take a quick minute here to remind you all about one of my favorite resources, and that is ransomware.org. You can find out everything you need to know about ransomware, how to prepare, prevent, and recover. This site is jam-packed with information, helpful tips, checklists, strategic approaches, case studies, everything you need in one place. So wherever you are in your ransomware preparedness journey, there is something for you at ransomware.org. Go check it out and start exploring. All right, I have one more exciting resource I have to tell you about today, and that is the Gorilla Guide Book Club. It's going to give you access to free enterprise IT books authored by top industry experts, so you can stay up to date on trending enterprise technology. And yes, these books will work on your Kindle, your mobile device, and as I said, they are completely free. You can download these awesome resources at gorilla.guide, and there's a link for you in that Handouts tab as well. All right, well, we have covered a lot of important things already, and I don't know about you all, but I am excited to dive in. So let's get going.
I agree, Jess. Let's get going, everyone. Hi, and welcome to the Actual Tech Media EcoCast. Today's topic is protecting your data, taking a comprehensive approach to data security, data loss, PII protection, and more. I want to start by saying a big thank you for joining us today, all of you attendees out there. On this EcoCast, we're going to be hearing from some real heavy hitters in the industry, including Rubrik, HPE, Aruba Networking, and Sierra. I am Keith Ward with Actual Tech Media, and I am thrilled to be your moderator for this incredible EcoCast today. The other members of our legendary mod squad include Jess Steinbach, Scott Becker, and Mackenzie Pudici. Okay, and as always with our events, we're giving you more than just fantastic content. We are giving away prizes. And today that means three $300 Amazon gift cards. Now remember, as Jess said, that you do have to be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prizes. We're going to be giving those away after every presentation today. So stay tuned for those and see if you are going to be a winner. And with that, let's get rolling. What do you say, huh? We have got a great keynote for you today from the one and only Joey D'Antoni. Joey is a writer, speaker, all-around data expert, and maybe most important of all, he is an elite cyclist. Joey and I always are talking cycling when we get together because I am a non-elite cyclist who loves the sport, but couldn't even, no way I could keep up with him if we're doing any kind of a serious ride. But that's okay. I like him anyway. Now, Joey is in the house and ready to go, so I am going to throw this to him. Joey, you have the floor, my friend.
Hello and welcome to Protecting Your Data, taking a comprehensive approach to data security, data loss, PII, or personally identifiable information, protecting that PII, and more. I'm Joey D'Antoni, and I'm Principal Consultant at Denny Cherry & Associates Consulting, and today we're going to talk about all the various data challenges that we see in the world, from backup and recovery, with a heavy emphasis on security, because one of the challenges we face in this modern landscape is a heavy set of security threats from threat actors all around the world. The threat landscape, as we speak of, and this is a screenshot I took this morning because Snowflake's been going through a bit of a tough time with a data breach. It's kind of a really interesting case study because it's not something that's directly related to Snowflake's core security infrastructure, but it is related to their product infrastructure. And this is something that's really interesting for anybody who happens to be a software as a service provider out there. Just because your internal security is really good, if you don't make it really easy for your customers to have security that's as good as you, and they get a breach, which is kind of what's going on with Snowflake right now, you take that reputational hit for having poor security, because Snowflake has worked with big security firms like Mandiant and a couple of other ones that have said, Snowflake has not been breached internally. But what the challenge is that Snowflake security is very difficult to set up with multi-factor authentication. I don't think my understanding, at least in these early stages, is there's not a way for admins to force all users to use multi-factor authentication. So the threat actors in this scenario went after companies that were known Snowflake customers, and they targeted users who didn't have multi-factor authentication with like your kind of traditional hacks like password sprays. You don't want to be a headline on Google News or anywhere else, frankly. So having a culture of security in your organization helps you build these things. And that's going to be kind of our theme throughout this talk, is is it's not just implementing tools. It's not just doing IT stuff. It's very much a cultural, philosophical change that you have to do in order to have good security and good data protection. And they go hand in hand. And as much as I like to encourage everyone to use things like password managers and use MFA and not use the same passwords for multiple sites, that's not all of what security is. There are a lot of foundational security steps that are really important. Multi-factor authentication is one of the easiest things you can do to improve your data protection. However, security steps go well beyond that. There's a number of infrastructure components, networking components, all sorts of things that we talk about from a security threat landscape that make the job of the threat actor much harder than at other firms. And remember, you don't necessarily have to have the best security in the world. You don't have to be the NSA. You just have to be better than the other people that the hackers are trying to attack. The other aspect to this, though, is that MFA and passwords are really just the start of a comprehensive security strategy and culture. And what do we mean by security culture? We mean that your organization and your employees need to at all levels, not just your IT organization, have an understanding of security and so on. And to illustrate that, I got this great cartoon from XKCD, which is one of my favorite tech nerd cartoons. And if we think about what would happen, and we think about the way hacks happen, typically people on the left are going to say, "Oh, his laptop's encrypted. Let's build a multi-million-dollar cluster to crack his password so we can get into the data." And then one of the people are saying, "No, it's 4K bit RSA," and the other one's saying, "Blast, we won't be able to do this. We need a much bigger cluster in order to do that, or quantum computing." And then we talk about what would actually happen, and we say his laptop's encrypted. Drug him and hit him with this $5 wrench until he hits us the password. Got it? And those sorts of attacks that are targeted at high privilege users or senior management in your organization, those are the kind of attacks that are becoming more and more prevalent to gain access into organizations. It's not just as simple as brute force hacking things, because mainly because a lot of organizations have some of those frontline controls in place. So having employees who understand the sensitivity of the data they have access to, having frameworks in place that protect that data and kind of deassociate things so that we don't have a single place where we can go. These are all kind of important aspects of security culture. And there are some good books on the topic. So if you go to your favorite online bookstore and look for security culture books, there are a couple of really interesting books that kind of cover where you can go and how you can do this. And you really need security from the ground up. So security needs to be part of your organization at the baseline. You need to have security training for your users all the time. And it's not just enough to send, once a quarter phishing email trainings. You don't want to scare your users, but at the same time, you want them to kind of understand why you're having to do things. And training will help them better adopt these security things and build that culture within your organization. Because if you think about it from a technology perspective, every time we apply a new security control, it makes those users' lives harder. It's an extra task they have to perform, whether it's something as simple as MFA, whether it's having to hop across the network because you have a desegregated network. All of those things are challenging and they're painful. But when you start to understand why you're doing those things, your users will be more on board with helping you secure the organization. You also need to ensure that you have the IT staff and really budget, when we say staff, tools and expertise to manage those modern security threats. And it's possible to outsource these, especially if you're in a small organization. But you want to, if you're building that security organization and security focus and data protection focus, those are all things you need to think about. And we'll talk a little bit more about data protection here. But data protection goes beyond basic security hygiene. So even if you're doing the right things in terms of security, ransomware is not the only threat we have to worry about when it comes to data loss. And let's kind of talk about that. Backup and restore are really important. To be fair, nobody ever really cares about backup, which is my classic database administrator joke. People only care about restore. So what that means when we say that is you need to be regularly testing your restore operations, because if you're not, you don't have a good understanding of what your time to recovery is going to be like, or as we call it, recovery time objective, or RTO. And then secondly, you just don't have people who are used to doing that too. So that's another kind of training thing that you should think of. We also have these things called ransomware that you may have heard of, and data stealing. And backing up data allows you to more quickly recover from that, and at least better identify when you were attacked, and hopefully have important things like offline backups. And that's what we mean by air gaps, and immutable, which means those backups were written once and can only be read from that point forward. So once the file's written, it can never be written to again. It's kind of an old school thing we used to do with tape backups, but this is something that's also important. One of the other things you need to think about is insider threats. So people that are in your organization that might want to take data, maybe to their next organization, or sell it to one of your competitors. And this is where having strong network monitoring comes into play. And there are a lot of data governance tools that will help you tag data and isolate sensitive data within your organization. One of the key parts to understanding those tools is that that's not simply an IT implementation. This is something you have to work with your business organization to fully understand, so that you can more readily classify that PII data, that sensitive business data that's very important to the organization. All of these things matter. And the latest kind of security threat that we have is these info stealer tools. And this is kind of part of what's going on with Snowflake, where this data was captured through info stealer tools, is the understanding. And those tools tend to be lighter weight than ransomware. So they're harder to identify in your network, unless you're specifically looking for those kinds of data exfiltration attacks. And I think you'll hear data exfiltration a lot more in the next year. And like I mentioned, having data governance helps you do all this better. And that's not really an IT function, like we always say. It's something IT needs to be involved in, but the business really needs to drive it, because the business is the organization that understands the business's data. IT knows the business has data and backs it up and things like that, but it doesn't really fully understand the data of the organization itself. Headlines, fines, loss of customer trust, loss of your entire business. These are all the reasons why you want to protect your data and security and isolate your networks. Security and data protection are not simply an audit checkbox. You can treat them that way. You can just meet the bare minimum requirements that your cyber insurance requires, but it's an evolving, ongoing thing. And you need to train your users, train your staff, your IT staff, that is, and that helps you build a culture of security within your organization. Until it becomes an ongoing, regular thing, it's something you're always going to struggle with, and it's going to require some level of organizational change. And those things are always hard, but it will help you build a better, stronger, more secure organization. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the session.
Thank you, Joey. We are going to do just that, I think. And sorry about those connection issues you were having. It was still a great overview of data protection in the current environment. I hope those connection issues weren't due to some kind of a breach. I'm sure that's not it. But anyway, thanks for soldiering on with all that. Okay, folks, our first poll question of the day is up now for you. Let us know your time frame for adding new or updating existing IT solutions at your company. 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 12 to 24 months, or you're not sure. Those are your choices, and keep voting now while you have another minute or so to do that. In following up with what Joey said about users and how when you add more security measures, it gets more annoying for them. I think we can all relate to that. I certainly do. On the other hand, bad security can lead to career-ending events as well as company-ending events. Not to be alarmist, but that does happen. So when I feel like, why am I doing more security training? I think back to, well, this is crucial to keep my company humming along and running well and keeping me employed. So all of those are very good reasons for this event today and for learning more about this. So thank you for voting in the poll. We've got another few seconds to vote here. So keep doing that. This kind of information is important to us. This feedback to us and to our sponsors. So, with that, thanks again, everyone. And why don't we now move on to our first presentation in the EcoCast? Yay, here we go. All right, this first session today comes from Rubrik, and presenting for Rubrik is our old friend Veer Chosky, Senior Product Marketing Manager for Data Security. Veer does a lot of these events, and he is just fabulous. Can't wait to hear what he has to say. Veer, welcome back. It is always great to see you, and you're up to bat now, so take your best swing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Veer Chokshi. I've been with Rubrik for a little bit over 2 years. Now, in my role, I get to speak with both IT and security professionals. I imagine that this audience skews a little bit more towards the security side, and in many organizations, these functions are fairly siloed. So my goal with this presentation is to bring you all a little bit into the world of IT and backup, and to explain how enterprise backup and recovery belongs in the cybersecurity conversation and is a really vital component of cyber resilience. So we're going to talk about a newish flavor of security called data security. We're going to talk about why recoverability is a key part of cyber resilience. I'm going to spend some time talking about why backup matters and what you can get out of your backups. And then I'm going to end with a few final thoughts. So backup was really built for disaster recovery, meaning things like operational failures and natural disasters. However, in the age of cybercrime, this is simply not enough. It's important to have secure backup, and backups are often your last line of defense. Now, cybersecurity traditionally has focused on infrastructure security around prevention and detection in your production systems. And despite significant investments in infrastructure security and prevention tools, the risk of a breach can only be reduced. It can't be completely eliminated. Attackers, as everybody knows, are still managing to penetrate defenses and get at your data. So just as important as reducing the likelihood of a successful attack is reducing the impact of an attack. How quickly can business as usual be restored if an attack were to happen? And how can you, as a potential victim, make informed decisions to enable a successful recovery? And I'll explain why backups play a really important role. The typical security stack is necessary but not sufficient because attackers are still managing to deny victims their own data. We can think of ransomware and other types of cyber attacks as denial of data attacks. I want to set the stage with a little bit of research from Rubrik Zero Labs, our threat research unit. We commission market research, use third-party information, and also telemetry from Rubrik customers. And last year, 93% of organizations surveyed reported malicious actors attempting to impact their data backups. And 73% of those efforts were at least partially successful. Now, this is a broad survey. It's not Rubrik customers, but this goes to show that backups are something that both IT and security teams should have an interest in. Now, is your data an easy target? As I said before, traditional backup architectures were designed for disaster recovery and not so much for malicious cyber attacks. And it's important for us to ask ourselves questions like, are 100% of our backups immutable? Is the backup infrastructure physically isolated from the environment that it's protecting? And are multi-factor authentication and retention lock properly enforced? If not, your backups can get tampered with and you might not have anything to recover. You might be forced to consider having to pay a ransom. And with IT environments becoming more complex, distributed, hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, a similar set of considerations also applies to your cloud data. So backup is not cyber recovery, and disaster recovery is not cyber recovery in today's day and age. And when impacted by a cyber attack, organizations have to answer questions like, what exactly do I recover? Was sensitive data in scope? What is a safe restore point? And how do I ensure that I don't restore the malware? You need answers to those questions fast so that you can respond quickly and confidently. And executives and boards are also seeking answers to questions around cyber recovery, such as, are we good? Can you prove it? And how long will it take? So your data protection and data security platform has a major role to play in answering those kinds of questions. So let's spend a moment talking about some considerations around recoverability. So in order to meet business continuity objectives, backups need to be configured with the right policies for each data object, namely how often you're taking backup snapshots and how long data is retained. When an incident occurs, you need to determine what systems were impacted and the last known clean snapshot, easier said than done, and restore it to get back to business as usual. And so the red part here is all downtime. And recoverability is described by two key metrics: recovery point objective and recovery time objective, RPO and RTO. RPO is the point that you can recover from. RTO is the time it takes to recover. RPO is largely dictated by the frequency at which backups are happening. And the RTO is actually largely dictated by physics. There is some influencing that can be done here architecturally, but RPO is the easier knob to turn. At the end of the day, if the frequency of backup snapshots is too infrequent and the physics are not optimized, that can result in lost data and productivity. When I say data loss here, it's not exactly the same as data loss in the DLP context, but it's still losing your own data nonetheless. Now, why does backup matter? So there are benefits to tackling data protection and data security on the same platform. The first big one being there's a large surface area of data in your backups. Most organizations are backing up many different types of objects, including Windows and Linux file systems, NAS shares, databases, VMs, etc. Security tools like EDRs and antivirus software aren't always deployed on all of those objects. They're not always monitoring and listening on all of your critical infrastructure and critical data objects. So there is a lot of intelligence that can be gathered by analyzing those immutable backups across time. And I'll get a little bit more into that. And this can all be done via a fully hosted and integrated platform. And Rubrik Security Cloud is a SaaS offering. So you can remove silos with a single platform for data protection, data threat analytics, data security posture, and cyber recovery. And you can take advantage of the latest innovations delivered automatically to you. So the question really is, what if you could leverage your existing backup data to investigate threats and recover with greater speed and confidence? Because everybody has backups already, right? So your own backup data can actually be a rich source of intelligence to improve your cyber resilience. Now, some of the questions that I posed earlier can be addressed with data threat analytics. And data threat analytics refers to the ability to continuously monitor your data for risks and detect cyber threats. So if you're taking regular backup snapshots, you're in a good position to recruit your data in the fight against ransomware and other types of cyber incidents. And that's because you're capturing the longitudinal time series history of data if you're protecting your data with Rubrik. And additionally, Rubrik manages metadata, including its content, users, and access privileges to shed light on your data security posture. And so by scanning hundreds of snapshots, Rubrik's data threat analytics engine generates signals that are fed into a highly trained machine learning model. And that builds a historical baseline against which new data can be compared to find anomalous modifications, deletions, and encryptions. And again, we're capturing time series data from enterprise, cloud, and SaaS environments, feeding that data into the data threat engine, and that can result in valuable security intelligence, shining a light on those blind spots so that you can make informed recovery decisions and even get automated remediation recommendations. So what can you do with data threat analytics? You can detect threats early by automatically identifying indicators of compromise within backups using an up-to-date feed of threat intelligence. You can determine the scope of ransomware attacks using machine learning to detect deletions, modifications, and encryptions. And you can determine the initial point, scope, and time of infection by identifying specific indicators of compromise within the time series history of backup data. And because all of this scanning is done on backups, there's no impact to your production systems. So let's take a look at each of those three services within data threat analytics. Starting with threat monitoring. So the way this works is that threat intelligence is fed into the Rubrik threat feed. The hashes and Yara rules themselves can come from different contributors. One of the contributors is Rubrik's own InfoSec team. So you can leverage the same intelligence that we're protecting Rubrik the business with. Intelligence also comes from Zero Labs, Rubrik's threat research team, and it can also come from third parties. Either way, we vet the intelligence prior to including it in the feed to ensure the quality of the intelligence is high and that the threats are relevant to critical infrastructure environments. The intelligence gets downloaded at set time intervals, and when there's new intelligence available, a hunt gets kicked off automatically and searches for threats based off of those hashes and Yara rules. And should a match occur, you'll be notified right away by email. You can then drill down via the dashboard to see where the threat was located, what hash or Yara was matched, and find attributes associated with that hash or Yara for more background information to assist in potentially kicking off other threat hunts via Rubrik's threat hunting service or via third-party tools like a SIEM or an EDR. You can also quarantine the threat within your backup from within threat monitoring as well. So essentially, this threat monitoring service is a turnkey solution to help detect and protect your organization from threats. The intelligence gets downloaded automatically. It hunts based off of this intelligence automatically. And if any threats are found, you'll be notified about the threat, and any attributes associated with that threat will be shared whenever possible. It really is that simple. This is literally set it and forget it. The next data threat analytics service that I want to talk about is anomaly detection. Now, this service provides a comprehensive approach to ransomware remediation. We use multi-stage machine learning to detect anomalies in your backup data. The stages include observing file creations, deletions, and modifications, and comparing it to historical changes within that specific workload. Now, in addition to that, entropy is also analyzed to determine if a ransomware-like encryption has happened. And if possible, we'll also identify the specific ransomware strain as well. Now, if an attack has occurred, Rubrik automates the assessment of the blast radius to quickly understand what applications and files were impacted and when. That eliminates the intensive manual labor that's often required, such as bringing up a VM copy and manually comparing and scrubbing for changes. And finally, your backup file system has immutability. So since your data is never available in read-write mode, it simply can't be changed or overwritten. Fast and flexible recovery options can be used to revert back to the most recent clean version, whether using instant recovery, live mount, file level recovery, or orchestrated recovery. And that brings me to threat hunting. And now this is a powerful tool that lets you perform custom scans within your backups on demand for specific indicators of compromise. You can identify the point of malware entry so that you know what point in time to recover to avoid reinfection and minimize data loss. Threat hunting is both broad and deep. It allows you to scan multiple workloads and across time. Threat hunting is flexible. It can consume and search for threats via Yara rules, file hashes, and file patterns. These types of threat intelligence are industry standards. Thus, this allows you to leverage threat intelligence from various sources, such as internal sources like your own InfoSec team, third-party intelligence services that could be paid or open source, from industry groups such as ISACs, and even government agencies who issue threat bulletins. Now, much like anomaly detection, threat hunts are done on backups, and thus there's no impact on live production systems. Threat actors remain unaware of the ongoing hunt. And lastly, since rubric backups are immutable, you can identify indicators of compromise that attackers have erased from production systems in an attempt to cover their tracks. So threat hunting can shortcut the hunt for the point in time and the place where adversaries may have gained access to your infrastructure and help to define the clean recovery point so that you're not recovering with the malware still in place. Let's look at a typical ransomware attack and how data threat analytics fits in. Bad actors will establish initial access, followed by a lateral move, persistence, privilege escalation, recon, collecting, and staging. And finally, there's exfiltration and encryption. So anomaly detection pinpoints the impact on the target. You can identify the blast radius so that you know what to recover quickly. Threat monitoring and threat hunting identify when the attackers established access so that you can ensure a safe restore point. So threat monitoring is a passive activity, while threat hunting is more active if there are specific indicators of compromise that you want to hunt for. Now, these are all very powerful when used in conjunction and help you to make sure that your recovery is as fast and safe as possible. So data threat analytics, again, to recap, combines three powerful threat detection engines. With threat monitoring, you can continuously scan for known threats to detect compromise before the damage is done. With anomaly detection, you can detect file system anomalies and even VM anomalies to identify data destruction and the blast radius of an attack. And with threat hunting, incident responders can hunt for IOCs throughout the time series of data. So let's move on to data security posture. So what can you do with data security posture? You can reduce sensitive data exposure and manage exfiltration risk by discovering what types of sensitive data you have and where it lives. And you can also reduce this data exposure risk by identifying who has access to that sensitive data. Again, just like with data threat analytics, because all of this scanning is done on backups, there isn't impact to your production systems. So let's take a look at the services that make up data security posture, starting with sensitive data monitoring. Now, this service automatically discovers and classifies sensitive data, both on premises and in the cloud, including in Microsoft 365. We offer many pre-built analyzers that are aligned to common policies. So for example, analyzers that'll discover PII, PHI, GDPR data, etc. And sensitive data monitoring offers benefits both in peacetime and in an attack scenario. So in the proactive use case, you can determine, is data stored in the right places? It's very common for organizations to discover that they have sensitive data somewhere where they didn't expect it to be. And also, are we complying properly with data regulations? Now, in the reactive use case, in the attack scenario, this is also useful for regulatory compliance and reporting. You can find out whether sensitive data may have been impacted in an attack and notify the appropriate parties. Now, user access helps you reduce the risk of sensitive data exposure by providing intelligent insights into data access permissions. So you can proactively identify which users have access to what data and what type of risk that access poses. This comes in handy when conducting forensic investigations post-incident, since you'll be able to quickly identify which users had access to the impacted data and therefore narrow down the list of potentially compromised credentials. So again, my goal here was to give you all a peek into why your backup system is a key component of cyber resilience, and just a few takeaways here. Backups are often the last line of defense against cyber attacks, and it's really, really important for your backups to be air-gapped and immutable so that they can't be impacted by those bad actors. Backup policies impact recoverability. It's important to prioritize your data assets. Every type of data object is different, and define RPOs and RTOs. Backups contain really valuable security intelligence. For example, the blast radius of an attack, indicators of compromise, a clean restore point, content sensitivity and access permissions, even remediation recommendations. Again, your backups are your own data, and We should be leveraging this data to get the security intelligence that'll help us get back to business as usual as quick as possible. And lastly, both IT and security should have a seat at the table. And I would encourage everyone to involve IT in your tabletops, because there's a lot of information, like I've been saying, within the backups that those teams can provide. Rubrik Security Cloud is composed of a set of capabilities around data protection, data threat analytics, data security posture, and cyber recovery. And I spent a good chunk of time in this presentation talking through the detect and identify pieces here, but there's a lot more that I barely touched on, including orchestrated recovery and different integrations that we have with other security solutions like DLP, SIEM, and SOAR systems. That's everything that I have for you today. I hope that this session was useful. If you'd like to learn more about Rubrik and our product offerings, please get in touch. If you're curious about the state of data security and want to read more of our research, do check out our Hard Truths report at rubrik.com/0-labs. If you'd like to see the product in action, head over to rubrik.com/explore. Once again, thank you for joining me today. Take care.
Thank you, Veer. And as always, just a terrific presentation. Great information there. Love seeing what Rubrik is doing and the new offerings that they seem to always be coming out with. And now we've got our next poll question up. Please let us know what additional resources you would like to see from Rubrik. Now, we had a bunch of questions that we can't get to here today. Unfortunately, Veer cannot stay with us, but he and the Rubrik team will do their best to respond to all of those questions. So sit tight if you asked a question. I also want to remind everyone while you're voting here about the handouts. As Jess mentioned at the beginning, that is the link right next to your questions tab. And we have got a link there from Rubrik that'll take you to more information about their solutions. Be sure to check that out if you would like more detail. Thanks to everybody responding to the poll. We appreciate your feedback. I'm going to leave it up here for another moment while I do the next really fun part, which is giving away the first $300 Amazon gift card of the event. And that winner is Nicole Pritchard from Arizona. So congratulations to you, Nicole. We will be in touch ASAP about claiming your prize. And with that, it is time to move to our next presentation in the EcoCast. This presentation comes from HPE Aruba Networking, and presenting for them today are Jay Tilson, Director of Strategy, Field CTO, and John Spiegel, Director of Network Transformation, and also a Field CTO. So some top guns here to present today. Jay and John, welcome. Thank you for being here today. I am going to turn this over to you.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us today. In this session, we're going to talk about elevating your data protection strategy with SSE. But before we get started, let me just introduce you to your host for today. My name is Jay Tilson. I'm joined by my colleague and my friend, Mr. John Spiegel. Together, John and I have over 50 years of enterprise experience running large infrastructure and security teams. We spent the bulk of our careers sitting in your chairs and have experienced the same daily challenges as you. And not just those technical challenges, but the cultural, budget and resource challenges also. We've recently left our roles in the enterprise space and moved to a company called Access Security, which is now part of HPE Aruba Networking. And we made this move because we both believe that networking and security are marred in complexity. Stitching together a bunch of solutions that worked in the early 2000s no longer works in this new world of the hybrid workforce. And over the years, we found that the old approach really created more challenges than solutions, and when deployed, looked like a game of mousetrap. We both believe that there is a better way of doing things, and this is called consolidation. So let's get started. The enterprise is undergoing the most significant transformation in history. Companies are adopting cloud services like never before, and many have a cloud-first approach. This means that the legacy systems that always used to be on-prem are now being moved more and more to software as a service, infrastructure as a service, and platform as a service. Additionally to this, there is a huge rise in the number of IoT devices in use, and statistics show that there will be more than 15 billion IoT devices connected to the enterprise infrastructure by 2029. Lastly, the pandemic created a massive shift in our workforce, with the hybrid workforce now being the norm, and with 50% of workers expected to be part or full-time remote. This means our users, their devices, our data, and our applications are now everywhere. And these huge changes require a new approach when it comes to network security, to keep our access safe and fast, as our legacy solutions of the past are no longer working in today's new world. Statistics show that the average cost of a data breach now stands at $4.8 million, up more than 25% since 2022. Before we move on, I just want to give you one more scary statistic, and it's well worth thinking about. 80% of IT organizations found IoT devices on their networks that they did not either install or could not secure. So let that sink in for just a minute. So let's just remind ourselves about the three approaches in which we can secure our workforce of today. Firstly, we have the hub and spoke design. This is a progression from the old castle and moat, where everyone was inside the perimeter. But this design still focuses on having on-prem security, even though users and their data had started to move to the cloud. With this design, there is still a heavy reliance on MPLS and internal data centers. And in my experience, this model is complex to configure and to administrate. You need to feed and water applications to ensure they remain secure. And you also have to go through hardware renewal cycles, as well as continually patch all of your systems to protect them against attack. Another option here is virtualized cloud firewalls. This is an evolution of the hub and spoke design, but it's all about moving some of your legacy-based security systems that used to run on hardware, but to cloud-based solutions. The aim here is to remove some of the burdens of keeping your system secure. However, in my experience, in a lot of cases, this meant also continual to backhaul internet traffic to your corporate networking data centers. So with this design, it was always supposed to be about making things simpler. But in my experience, it often led to further complexity and cost. And then there is SSE.
So what is SSE and why do we need it? SSE was introduced by Gartner in 2019 as part of a larger framework called SASE. It addresses the issues Jay highlighted on the previous slide. And what it does, it focuses on bringing network and security together in an elegant way. It's delivered in two technology stacks. On the left side of this graphic, it's all about connectivity, with a focus on WAN edge services like SD-WAN and WAN optimization. The right side covers the security elements under the SSE banner. It brings together services like ZTNA, CASB, SWIG, and digital experience monitoring. Our world has changed, and the tools of the past are no longer sufficient to secure us. Consider this, and this is what SASE is really about. The challenge that every network and security leader confronts when deploying a new application. Do I favor speed or security? And I can only choose one. SASE overcomes this dilemma by moving these services, the WAN edge and the security services, to POPs, so connectivity and security are as close as possible to the user or application. This allows you to overcome this dilemma. You gain speed with security when delivering business-critical applications. So how does SSE and SASE help in the battle against ransomware? To understand that, we need to level set. What is the battle of ransomware about? It's about this: data. Clive Humley, a British mathematician, most likely said it best in 2006. Data is the new oil. These ones and zeros are stored in virtually every corner of our world, and they power industries and hold tremendous power in terms of decision making. Where do I invest? What are my customers doing? And critically, what does the future hold? Data can also be used against companies.
What if someone were to gain the access to financial results of a publicly traded company just days before the announcement? And what if somebody gains access to a critical database or a file share? And what if there's something embarrassing there? What if they're keeping a secret? Does that have power? How much would you pay to have the stock price not impacted? Or how much would you pay to not have your secret sauce put out on the public internet? Well, the table stakes known for protecting yourself in terms of a program like cybersecurity awareness, or maintaining a solid patching protocol, or keeping your antivirus updated. There's one area which has been a challenge. That is leveraging your network and security systems to provide an integrated defense. Why? Because of complexity and lack of integration. It's as if the network team speaks one language and the security team speaks another. What if we could simplify that approach? What if we could create a common language?
Thanks for that, John. I think now's a good time that we dig a little bit deeper into our platform. It was really built from the ground up with simplicity in mind. Complexity does not make for good security design. So we have a single solution with a single UI, a single data lake, and a single reporting engine for all elements of SSE, built from the ground up with zero trust at its core. We are not a bunch of separately acquired or developed products brought together into a portfolio. That's just far too complex. This means that we can secure access from any type of user, third party, contractor, or enterprise employee, to all of your resources, including private applications, SaaS applications, or the internet, and all in a single place. Our architecture is also very different. We do not have our own data centers and our own hardware, but we are built on top of the cloud giants with all features of SSE being available in all of our POPs. And you don't need to go to one POP for ZTNA or for another for SWIG, because that really just isn't simple. The architectural differences also ensure that we can eliminate bandwidth problems. We have smart routing technology using the power of the hyperscaler networks with over 1,000 edges locations across more than 5 continents. This superpower means that users always get the fastest possible access to resources from wherever they are. So let's dig a little bit deeper. When you look at the SSE market, you will find that each vendor emphasizes one of these core technology areas. It could be Secure Web Gateway, as the company started there. Or maybe it's Cloud Access Security Broker, as that was the target market that they were looking to be competitive in. And as I've just mentioned, our approach is very different. We believe the future is about transitioning to a new security strategy based on zero trust. The platform is designed to provide the resources required to perform a function, nothing more, nothing less. And we vigilantly watch for any indicators of change and can then adapt access accordingly. We built our platform to deliver agentless zero trust network access for the hard to solve use cases of third parties and contractors where an agent could not be deployed. We then added an agent to ensure full VPN replacement. And then on top of the same code base, we built out the other SSE features. We believe the future is about delivering secure access for applications, whether they're in the cloud or private data centers. Services must be delivered the same no matter the location of the user, applications, or data, with security checks such as MFA and device posture. We believe we have elegantly solved this for both your employee and those difficult third-party and contractor resources. So let's be clear. Our platform was built on zero trust at its core, and then we added the other SSE features to our platform within a single UI. So we have Secure Web Gateway for securing your employees from internet-based threats, Cloud Access Security Broker for leveraging SaaS assets like Salesforce or Office 365. And then for the critical elements that people often forget, you have DEM, Digital Experience Monitoring. This is really all about giving visibility back to IT and security teams that we lost when our users left our network. I often get asked, what are the benefits of SSE? Firstly, it increases your security posture by providing zero trust access to all services and applications. You eliminate your attack surface and reduce your exposure. You also get to enforce least privilege access to all applications and services, including private applications, SaaS applications, and the internet, as I've just discussed. This will help you protect your business against ransomware and data loss. Secondly, you get to deliver the best experience possible for end users and IT administrators. End users receive quick, seamless access to applications, services, and data every time because of our smart intelligent routing system and our 1,000+ edge locations. Also, IT admins can control access centrally and granularly, making it easy to secure the business from a holistic perspective. Lastly, you optimize your business with one solution for all of your secure access needs. You get to simplify and unify networking and security functions and minimize complexity by reducing the number of point products you have in play. Additionally, you also get to save money by reducing reliance on appliance-based security solutions, and you can also effortlessly scale with our cloud-delivered platform. Before we move on, I just want to dig a little bit deeper into how everything works. As I previously stated, the Atmos platform includes all core functions of SSE. This means that access is granted to things like internet, SaaS applications, the public cloud, or applications hosted in your data center, all from a single UI. So first, the user requests access. Note, as I've mentioned, this could be with or without an agent, so we can cover those difficult to manage third-party and contractor use cases where an agent can't be installed. Next, the platform auto-mediates the request for access and its scale. So unlike legacy VPNs, there are no pass-through connections. Users do not get an IP address on your network and cannot go wherever they want, whenever they want. The system will then prompt for MFA and then automatically verify against your specified access policy. This is based on user, device, and application context to prevent any unauthorized access. Once everything balances, it then brokers smart and surgical connections that help to minimize the attack surface and also to prevent lateral movement. As I've previously mentioned, we have a single data lake for all of these services, which allows full visibility into all traffic. Please note that the platform also continually inspects the posture of a device and the user, and if anything changes, access is adapted or severed within 60 seconds. This all adds up to increased protection against the bad guys, whilst also significantly reducing costs and complexity. But most importantly for me, it's all about securing and empowering your remote workforce.
And here is where the rubber meets the road. Let's put this in terms of the threat. There's a belief that the odds are stacked against the defenders. That in order to protect your company, you must be right 100% of the time. A better way to think about this is to reverse that concept and consider the kill chain. First introduced as part of the response to the Lockheed incident in 2011, the kill chain breaks down the attack into a series of steps which must be completed in order for the attack to be successful. So how does SSE help prevent ransomware? There's 3 critical areas. First, SSE reduces your exposure. While VPNs punch holes through your firewall and expose inbound ports, SSE enables access only through outbound connections. The results are that your network IPs are never exposed. Outbound-only connections with SSE stop compromised users and devices from ever coming in contact with your network. Secondly, SSE reduces lateral movement. The concept of least privileged is baked into the core of the platform. More often than not, users only need access to a select number of applications, but traditional approaches like VPN give them access to the entire network. And then there's DLP, or data loss prevention. Our smart DLP policy allows admins to restrict or allow downloads, uploads, or access certain file types for all traffic within a single DLP policy. This creates a simple DLP opportunity without the compromise of complexity that you'll find in point products. At the end of the day, customers are key. Their journeys are much like yours. Examples could be like a Delta Dental, where they got a jumpstart on their ZTNA program by replacing 4 individual VPN solutions with one SSE platform. Or it could be like UKG, where they went full in on unified SASE with HPE, getting fast connectivity with a full security platform. Then there's VisionWorks, a national optical retailer. Their journey was about network transformation. How do we move applications from on-prem data centers to the cloud with little to no impact on their employees? How did these companies find success? Here are some of the pro tips they used in evaluating various SSE solutions. When you're looking at SSE providers, there are key items to consider, as all of them have strengths and weaknesses. The best recommendation I can provide is you review them through the lens of simplicity. If the solution looks and sounds complex, it will be. It will also be expensive and time-consuming to manage. Therefore, use these recommendations. First, look for a unified approach. Stitching together point products is a thing of the past. New software-defined solutions with integrations designed to provide visibility are the modern way forward. In order to stop a threat, you need to see it. A unified approach from day one gives you the advantage. Next, policy. If you've ever had to manage policy from several UI interfaces, you know there are mistakes to be made. We're all human. Focus on a solution which can help you reduce these errors and provide options for securing both modern and legacy applications. Deployment options are also a consideration. Look for flexibility. Demand options for both cloud and on-prem. If they are focused in one direction, make sure to ask for choice. Our businesses are not a one-size-fits-all affair. We need tools to align with the business, not businesses aligning with a tool. And finally, AI. Yes, it's a hot topic and the buzz is loud. That said, AI can operationalize and up-level your security program, so make sure to ask about it. So now what? The choice is really yours. Why not talk to us about completing a value assessment? We will work with you and your team and help you understand how you can best gain value from an SSE platform. What tools would you like to consolidate? And how would you like to retire your own hardware? Or do you want to see more of the product? If so, reach out and ask for a demo. We'd love to show you the power of simplicity, because complexity often leads to poor security outcomes. It's really, again, up to you. So pick your path.
If you have any questions, then please feel free to reach out and contact us. We're always willing to help.
Okay. Wow, what a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much, Jay and John. Now, hopefully, you guys are ready for some questions. Let me get you going here and make sure that you are both around. Are Jay and John, can you both let me know that you can hear me?
Yeah, this is Jay.
We can certainly hear you.
Okay.
Team J and J.
J and J. And I typically do not have any problem being heard either. So glad to see that we are all here and ready to go. And I've got the poll question up. Please let us know, while we're going over your great questions, what additional information you would like about the HPE Aruba Networks solution. Keep voting while we are going over the questions. Also, remember that we do have a PDF from HPE Aruba all about its Secure Service Edge offering. Be sure to check that out for more detail also while we are going over these questions. So, all right, let's get started, folks. John, I think the first question I'm going to ask you, and attendee wants to know, based on the Gartner SSE framework, there are quite a few products that are consolidated into one. Does this impact the speed with which you ramp up a platform like this?
Yeah, 100% it does. You've really got to look at this as a holistic approach. But the key thing is really to find a business problem that you're looking to solve and start there. A lot of times what we see from our customers is third-party access is an area that they may or may not have buttoned up. And we see them starting with that. And basically, they're using our agentless solution really to protect themselves from the risk of a third party breach or over privileging. So that's a great place to start. And once they get used to the product, they start to move on to other areas. It could be a VPN replacement type project to empower the hybrid workforce, or maybe it's a SWIG, maybe it's protecting your SaaS applications with a CASB. The real thing is think about what you have in your portfolio, take a look at it, form a team, and just start solving problems. This is a process that takes a time, it takes energy and resources.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Okay. Tirtha, I think that's how the name is pronounced, has a question. And I guess I'm not sure which one of you wants to handle this. You can fight it out here. But the question is, can the policies be replicated across multiple deployments? Very important to know.
And the answer is yes. I'll caveat that. If this is an MSP that is asking the question and we have multiple tenants within the MSP, then yes. You can also do it if you are a parent and you have multiple subtenants. You can do that within the user interface already. But if the question is more around from customer to customer, then within the UI, you cannot currently do that if you're independent customers. But it would be possible on the back end to do some of that replication if that's what the question was asking.
Okay, and let me add something as well. One of the unique aspects of our solution is that we really focused on a single UI to cover SSE. So an example in policy, and if this is somebody asking about their company and how they can apply policy, we can apply policy in a single line that includes not only say ZTNA, but also CASB, and then also include those posture checks and IDP and so on and so forth. So the policy engine that we've created is very powerful. And once you compare it to some of the other vendors on the market, you'll see that also we added a lot of simplicity into it. So it's very easy to read and to understand.
Simple is good, no doubt about it. Okay, we got time for a couple more questions. I do want to remind folks to keep voting in the poll that we're going to keep up in the meantime for additional information that you would like to get from HPE Aruba Network. So next question up comes from James, and he asks, what does your assessment entail and how long does it take? I think he means entail. What does your assessment entail and how long does it take?
I'm not sure what that refers to, but if it's discussing like a proof of concept and kind of kicking the tires on it and understanding how the product goes together, it's a really quick process. We have developed the system as cloud native. It's delivered much like a SaaS model. And for us to do a deployment, in your environment so you can try it out, it's a very simple process. It's really working with our team, trying to understand what business problems you're looking to solve, and then designing that proof of concept around it. But time, once that has been, done, time to, really getting your fingers in there and doing the POC is really quick. And maybe Jay has something to add here.
I apologize. I lost my audio for a while, so I don't know what the question was.
Okay. And no worries. No problem at all. We've got some more questions, and we do want to get to a couple more before we let you go. And here's another one. And I don't know if you want to take this one, Jay or John, but the question is, how well does your solution work in a healthcare environment with several site locations? A real world perspective here.
We have a number of healthcare customers in play already, so it works very well. It's cloud-based, so as long as you have a connection to the internet in some form, then it will work. And like I said, healthcare is one of the areas we work in quite a lot.
Good to know. Okay, final question. Michael wants to know, what are the average and minimum RPO and RTO of Aruba SSE?
I think the question is really more around the lines of resiliency. And that is a topic to dive into whenever you're looking at a SASE, SSE vendor, even if you're looking at a network infrastructure kind of play. Our resiliency is very high. We have built our product on top of the cloud giants, and it runs on top of their infrastructure, almost like a tier above that. So our resiliency is very high. Our agent will connect to at least 5 various discrete POPs to provide that connectivity and that security, as well as failover is almost very quick. So try it out, test it, compare it to some of our competitors. I think you'll find there's a differentiator in how we built the architecture.
And that is a great place to leave things today. We are out of time. Jay and John, I want to thank you for that inspired presentation today, for your insights in the Q&A, and for letting us know what HPE Aruba Networks is doing these days. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
We enjoy working with you guys.
We always do too. Thank you, gentlemen, and have a great afternoon. Okay, folks, while I leave this poll up for another minute or less, giving you another few seconds to vote, I'm going to give away the next $300 Amazon gift card. And the winner of the next prize is Zechariah Akinpelu from Texas. I hope I pronounced that last name right, but Zechariah Akinpelu from Texas, congratulations to you. We'll be in touch ASAP about claiming your prize. And now, folks, it is time for our final presentation in the EcoCast. This session comes from Sierra, and presenting for Sierra is Chris Hines, VP of Product Marketing and Corporate Communications. Chris, it is a delight to have you here today. Are you ready to go?
I am. Thank you so much for having me. It's always wonderful to be able to partner with the community here.
Yeah, absolutely. The pleasure is ours. So I am going to hand you the mic.
Hey, thank you so much. So to the entire audience, obviously we appreciate your time. I know there's a lots of amazing things going on in the world, and I'm sure you're being called to handle every single one of those, especially on the security side. But I want to introduce myself and obviously the company that I'm representing here today. So I have the wonderful ability to work with many different customers to help them solve what we think is probably the most fundamental challenge around security, which is data security. And here at Sierra, we have this kind of internal mission. If you think about it, we want to make sure that we can help our customers focus in on really enabling their business to safely use data in ways that they see fit, both now and into the future. And when we thought about how to address that challenge around data security, the foundational element was really around initially discovery. And we found that given the growth of data, and you see the stat here, which is pretty incredible if you think about between last year and next year, the amount of data in the world is going to increase by 50%. That's 23% growth year over year, which is incredible. The number of terabytes or of zettabytes in the world will be 181. And a lot of times when I say that stat, people are like, okay, well, I think I've heard the term zettabyte before, but to give it kind of a frame of reference, if you think about the number of grains of sand across all the world's beaches, that's 1 zettabyte. There's going to be 181 of them by next year. Now, that's amazing for business because you think about all the customer insights that we can glean from data. You think about the competitive differentiation that we can introduce within the market. Think about even things like AI and how prevalently used copilots are, right? Whether it's Microsoft Copilot or really any SaaS application is going to have a copilot in the future. We see Google Gemini, you see SageMaker from AWS, Einstein from Salesforce. The list is going to continue to grow. But when we think about this fundamentally from a security practitioner's perspective, what that means is that we need to be really smart about understanding what data exists in my environment, but more importantly, having a way to distinguish the important data from the non-important data, because that's ultimately going to allow you to drive prioritization. And the better you can prioritize, the more quickly you can respond to and remediate data risks. So the slide here, obviously, you see the headline there. The concept here is that this is a massively growing attack surface. And while data is probably the most vital asset you have as a business, it's also one of the most vulnerable. And we've seen examples of that play out in real life, right? This is not by any means a way to pick on anyone. I think it creates a teachable moment for us all. If you're familiar with what happened with the Change Healthcare breach, I'm going to assume that many of you are, if you're on this call, if you're a security practitioner. But in case that you missed this because there's a lot going on and you've been busy, Change Healthcare is a subset of United Health Group. Just for reference, they touch 1 out of 3, so 33% of all healthcare records in the U.S. Their GDP of the amount of data that flows through them on a yearly basis is like 5% of the U.S. Massive. As you have seen, there have been lots of ransomware or cyber threats in general that are targeting healthcare organizations. This one in particular happened to be one of the largest, if not the largest, in our history. The challenge that they ran into was lack of MFA on one server that actually came in through part of their acquisition. But in the other pieces, their prime backup was not available as well. The challenge that they ran into was actually not just about the fact that this breach took place, but was really around determining materiality of that breach. And that materiality had a lot to do with the data itself. So what was the PHI and person identifiable information that was impacted by this breach? It's really difficult for most organizations to provide this, right? If they have a solution already in place, it's typically very manual, or its coverage is weak. Maybe it only supports on-prem environments. But now, if you think about that same data that's been existing in on-prem is now moved to a SaaS app or an IaaS location, or even a database as a surface, having an understanding of the data that exists across that environment, and more importantly, what personal identifiable information is critical to actually notifying the customers who are impacted by this. So the challenge here is, if you don't understand the data that's in your environment, you don't understand the sensitivity of this, it's really difficult to respond in a situation of crisis like the example you saw there. Now, it's certainly not just limited to one company. This is something that every single organization is thinking about top of mind. When we think about the number of inquiries that like a Gartner is getting around this space that is called data security posture management, it went from 7 inquiries in 2022 to close to 700 already in just this year alone. And we're only sitting here in June 11th, midway through the year. But this is a challenge that many organizations struggle with. We actually commissioned a survey of a few hundred security leaders end of last year with Forrester. And no surprise, I'm sure to many of you, 7 out of 10 talked about the challenges they're having around actually making use of data without increasing risk to the business. And the general trends really fall into one of 3 buckets. The first bucket is, well, what data exists in my environment? The second piece is, well, I need a better way to actually control governance in the use of that data and determine whether or not that's going to put me into a situation of non-compliance. Right? If I'm a healthcare organization, I care about HIPAA. If I'm a global organization, I care about things like GDPR. Do I have EU citizen data that is drifting out into the US, whether that's maybe for an application because of some processing capabilities that needs to take place in the US and then comes back into the EU or not? Either way, it's a GDPR compliance. If you're a financial services organization, you care about things like PCI DSS or PIPEDA. So determining through detection and monitoring capabilities around not just the data that's in the environment, but what's going on that I need to be aware of is critical. And of course, using those insights to determine whether or not there is a potential exposure. And if I am exposed, what is my blast radius? A lot of companies nowadays, obviously zero trust has been talked about for 30 years, but the approach has been very much around either identity, where you're looking at just who is the user of the non-human device, or endpoint, where it's let me understand the posture of the device, and that extends to things like XDR. Inline security controls, which are things like SASE and SSE. But what I feel has been kind of underdeveloped or immature is actually the data security aspect itself. And at the end of the day, data is the most important asset that we're looking to protect. So we need to rethink, how do we handle data security today? It's not a matter of really using legacy technologies that we've relied on in the past, but it's actually about going through certain scenarios. So this is the scenario that we often ask to prospects when we start to work with them. We call it the OneDrive scenario. We say, look, think about your top 20 executives. What if their OneDrive was compromised. And we literally just asked them simple questions, right? Would you understand what data was most pertinent from a sensitivity perspective that was in OneDrive? Most of them say, well, no, I can't. Can you then look at from an access perspective, whether this is a human or non-human device, right? You got to think about SaaS applications like Salesforce or Snowflake or Figma, not just the end users. What do they have access to? Are they power users? Are they trusted users? What level of sensitivity of the data are they looking to access, right? So understanding the data, the access to the data, the compliance frameworks that map to that as well is incredible. And then in most cases, if there is a third party, there's some kind of outside counsel, whether it's one of the big four or a legal entity that's helping them work through materiality as far as, well, if I'm a financial services organization, I have this number of credit card numbers who have been part of this breach, what am I liable for from a cost perspective? All of these questions are extremely difficult for most prospects to answer because they don't have the right technologies in place. And even if they do have some technologies in place, they typically are designed for on-prem environments. Many times, I would say probably 9 out of the 10 companies we work with have some kind of not just hybrid cloud environment when we're talking about public cloud and on-prem, but we're thinking about even things like databases as a service, right? SaaS applications like Microsoft 365 and Google Drive. You could have a perfectly protected on-prem environment, but that same data could exist and persist across Google, across Microsoft, across AWS. What about the security of those environments? And that's really where a lot of these traditional technologies lack, because they don't often have support for universal environments. The other piece is most of the traditional technologies that are out there are based on known patterns or regular expressions. And as many of you probably have dealt with, you have custom classifications that's needed. You have things that are not necessarily matching a certain pattern. Maybe they're something related to RFID logins or employee credentials or employee ID numbers that don't fit a certain pattern. Or maybe there's 9 figures in your employee ID, which can be confused with things like social security numbers, for example. So there's a lot of false positives. So we've heard a lot of prospects kind of deal with those challenges. The other piece is not really understanding enough context around the data itself. Not just the fact that it is sensitive, but why, right? What is the role that data is playing in the environment? What is it being used for? What class is it? Is it sensitive? What's the residency of that? So these are all additional capabilities that need to be baked into the data security platform to give you the insights you need to take action. And then lastly, we've seen a lot of these technologies struggle with integrations. Right? What I mean by integrations, you want to think about it in 2 ways. There's security integrations, which are, okay, we need to be able to send signals to additional security controls based on the data insights we have. The other piece is making sure that we can enhance workflows. So we really started to think differently in terms of, from a Cyera perspective, what do we want to be known for? What are the use cases where we want to be able to support our customers? And ultimately, it comes down to 3 areas. It's around helping them understand what is their, what we call the data attack surface, right? Their potential exposure at any given time. What we find is that oftentimes when we work with customers, we'll improve their coverage, so that's their visibility into data, by over 40%. So right away, we're helping them map out their environment and growing that by 40%. So they have great visibility into it, so they can then take the right level of controls based on that. The other piece, and I think this is one of the most foundational elements when you think about this notion of data security, is classification. If your classification is fundamentally flawed, everything you build on top of that from a data security perspective will be poor. If you have great and strong and highly accurate classification, your data security posture overall becomes very strong. So the ability to provide this with 95% level of accuracy, whether that's for unstructured or structured data, is something that we are extremely proud of. We actually built our own large language model that is trained with data from ChatGPT-4 and Psalm 2, and then fine-tuned through a natural language processor through Flam by Google to provide that high level of accuracy and strong foundation as a result of that. But it's not just around detection. It's around putting the necessary controls in place to govern the use of data overall. And we take this very seriously. We look at this from an end user perspective, whether that's a human, a non-human, a third party individual who has access to data. Once we can determine who has access to the data, we then use our policy engine to determine what they should have access to and what they should not have access to. And the beautiful thing about this is that we actually pre-can these and align them to known compliance frameworks that exist in the world, things like PIPEDA, like PCI, like NIST, even from a security basics perspective. And then lastly, once we've mapped out the attack surface, put the necessary controls in place, we wrap that with monitoring, detection, and remediation capabilities as well. This is done on a continuous basis as well. We're not just scanning the environment once and then using that. This is in near real time. We use that policy engine that I talked about that is pre-canned to those frameworks. And if one hits, or if something triggers, we issue an alert. And literally in the UI, we have something called an issue. And that alert could be misuse of data, could be data drifting, it could be maybe a from Microsoft or sensitivity label is mislabeled, we can automatically inject that. So it's monitoring, detection, and then really helping with things like automated remediation to simplify processes from a data security perspective is critical to what we do. And when we think about this holistically, this is really what our platform is about. Right? We call this the CSIRE Data Security Platform. Our foundation and core competency has come from data security posture management, which is essentially discovery and classification of data. And I show you that here. One of the biggest differentiators is the fact that this is a completely agentless solution. We're not needing to deploy connectors, or we're not sitting in line with any environment at all. Literally, it takes just 5 minutes to deploy this agentless solution within any of the environments that I discussed before, whether it's Snowflake, Azure, S3, Azure Blobs, IaaS environments, on-prem environments, so maybe Microsoft SQL or MySQL as well. We support all of these. The next layer, kind of in that onion that you see here, is around how we handle discovery. We have really focused on automation, where we can automatically scan environments regardless of what they are. We use a 3-tiered combination from a classification perspective, where Regex is just baseline. We add in our AI-powered classification capabilities for things like dynamic classification. We can even couple that with the customer's own machine learning classification that they built in to have a 3-layered classification strategy. We call this whole vision around attack surface discovery is really discovery and classification. Then on top of that, I talked about some of the control of use capabilities we put in place with our policies, with what we call data access governance. We're really starting to invest in identity because we think that identity and data are going to start coming together. So there's some additional insights we'll be bringing to light there. The monitoring, detecting component there, we have live feeds where basically every single action that we see taking place with your data, we log that. We then bubble up the ones that we think are critical. We rank them based on risk level as well, as far as what that materiality can mean to your business. And then something that really excites me is that we're not looking at this in just a vacuum. We integrate with over 40 technology solutions, whether that be from your identity providers to the CrowdStrikes of the world, the Netscopes of the world, ServiceNow and the Jiras of the world as well, to really simplify life down for our customers. And why folks like Nordstrom and Halion and Paramount Pictures have selected us really comes down to these 3 areas here. The way that we've handled the treatment of not just structured, but also unstructured and semi-structured data. We put a lot of focus into making this simple to deploy, really, really easy to use, not needing additional infrastructure as well, which is keeping the compute costs and infrastructure costs down from an infrastructure team perspective. We talked about how we handle classification at that 95% level. Really, it's because we created this awesome pre-trained large language model and making use of AI to make our solution better under the covers. So every single customer is able to benefit from that, and not just at the data level, but at the file and object level as well. Being able to query that data and derive additional insights. And then lastly, really start to think about how we handle identity, which I discussed before. So we put a lot of thought into how that works. The flow of the technology is very simple. We try to make this like a breeze. Right? At the end of the day, you deploy the solution, it takes just 5 minutes, literally. We start to inventory your data because we start scanning that immediately. Within 24 hours, you see value because we're able to classify your environments. And that classification really says, here's all the data in your environment. We call it the Data Explorer. But here's what's most critical. Here are issues related to it. Here are related issues to those issues as well. So you can really, really start to parse through the environment. We even inherit additional insights from the data store. So determining, is your data store fully encrypted? Is there inline controls already in place? Are there backups or replicas? All of that is pertinent information for you to look at when you look at your overall data security posture as well, in addition to the classification capabilities that we bring in line. Like, for example, you might find that there are social security numbers that are exposed in your environment, but maybe there's 1,000 records that have data masking or encryption, but 10,000 that don't have any data masking or encryption. You can then make a real-time decision to say, look, I'm less concerned about the data that's masked already. I want to know the stuff that's unmasked. Tell me that. So we do this through something called auto classification. You can define policies. We already have the pre-canned ones out of the box to make life easy for you, but then you can go create your own custom policies. Based on that policy engine, the issues arise, right? We alert you as far as what's the issues are. And then we add in remediation workflows with some of the SaaS providers like Jira and ServiceNow that you see here to make life much easier for the admin's perspective as well. Now, we don't want to just say, hey, here's the technology, go off and use it. What a lot of companies come to us and say is, well, help me understand, where do I start? And then what's the big, hairy, audacious goal at the end of the day? And the beauty here is that they can start with a really, really small scope. And that scope is really just, let me understand the data that's in the environment, and then from there, let me classify, right? Once I can classify, I can go deeper and wider into the discovery as well. And you'll see there that as we move up and to the right, it's the scan, then it's classify, then it's governed data use. I'm still getting deeper and wider into scan discovery. Like, for example, I might start with analyzing a particular environment, but now as I've, let's say discovered data within my Microsoft 365 environment, let me think about on-prem. Maybe let me look at Snowflake. Let me determine the number of users who have access to sensitive data but have MFA turned off. Those are the insights that we provide as part of the solution as well. But the end state, the Valhalla moment, is to get to the point where you're overall improving your data security posture. Right? This is the roadmap. This is the journey we take every single customer on. We will continue to build out additional services to make this simpler as well. And we think this is one of the most exciting spaces. In fact, our fundamental belief is that we want to be the data security cerebrum, where we have the insights, we have the classification, we have the core data around your data. And then what we'll do is send signals to those other really important security technologies we know that you already have in use. And the technology that can do that the best, we believe, will become the most important data security platform in the history of the world. And that's what we want to be. So very excited about this, and obviously excited to get a chance to hopefully work with every single one of you guys as well. And certainly would like to open it up to questions from the audience.
Thank you so much, Chris. Well, you have certainly an unambitious goal there, right? To be the most important security company in the world. There's nothing like dreaming small, is there? What a great presentation, Chris. Just outstanding stuff. I love the question that you said you asked customers, what would happen if OneDrive went away? Because that puts into concrete terms, makes you think about kind of your data infrastructure and whether you really are as prepared as you thought you were, So I just think that that's a brilliant question to ask. And while we get ready for our Q&A, we have a bunch of great questions coming in. I wanted to put up the Cyera poll question here. Please let us know what additional information you would like about the Cyera solution. Let us know and keep voting while we go over these questions. Also, remember to check the handout section where we've got a link for more information from Cyera. Be sure to check that out for more detail. So with that, Chris, looking like we have got some great questions coming in. So let's get to the first one here. And that is, sure. What environments do you support today with Cyera?
Yeah, absolutely. In general, we support any type of environment, whether that's on-prem, think about MySQL, Microsoft SQL, file shares like SMB file share. NetApp will be the next big kind of on-prem component that we support there. The beauty is that the same UI that we use to manage our SaaS and IaaS and PaaS environments are also used for on-prem. We see a lot of customers really concerned from a SaaS aspect with Microsoft 365, Google Drive, which are obviously ones that we support as well. On the IaaS front, when we think about like most sensitive data, we see Azure and AWS being the most prevalent. AWS being, obviously with things like S3, but also their classic IaaS environment. On the Azure side, Azure Blob is a really common one we see as well. But then we see a growth in database as a service. So if you think about Snowflake, MongoDB, all of those are supported as well. But in general, we call it universal. We wanted this to be a solution that could really support any environment out there.
Got it. So let's follow up in that same vein. We've got a number of questions that have come in about enterprise support. So can you give me a sense of how the Cyera solution works for these larger customers? How large does it go, for instance? And another question about how small does it go? Are you mainly an enterprise play? So just if you can talk about the enterprise level solution here.
Yeah, one of the interesting things we've found from a data perspective is there could be companies out there that have, let's say, 500 employees that have insane amounts of. Think about like a lot of the financial services firms that are out there, just the amount of data that flows to them is insane. And there's also a lot of regulations that mandate them to retain information for what's called 7+ years. So we really think about this as a solution that is really focused on the Fortune 2000 as far as our go-to-market. But we are starting to work more with managed service providers to go down market because data inherently is a problem that impacts everyone. And it really comes down to just prioritizing what is most sensitive. We see the compliance landscape changing a lot. The SEC is mandating that for any breach that customers within 4 days of determining materiality will report that out to the world. And we see that changing the entire landscape dramatically, regardless of size of company. But in general, this is something we focus on for larger organizations who tend to have a high correlation of insane amounts of data across hybrid environments as well.
Okay, great.
I'll add this, just one more piece. In any case, the deployment is the same, right? We're mostly using just APIs or direct or SaaS APIs. In the case of on-prem, we do the direct connections into data stores as well, and we're automating those processes quite a bit. So it's very simple regardless of the scenario.
Everyone likes to hear that the solution has a low learning curve, and it certainly seems like this fits in with that. So Michael asks, since Cyera does IAM, identity and access management inventory, can it dedupe the data if enabled requested?
Great question. So one of the things we're doing now is we think about that from a data insights perspective. So in the example I'll give, let's call it Snowflake. Let's say you're a Snowflake user out there, and obviously you want to determine what are the users that have access to Snowflake, which of those have MFA turned on, but then also what data do these individuals have access to, and what is the sensitivity of that data. So that's where we would be able to pass along insights to your identity service. So whether that's Azure Active Directory or Ping, to say, look, these individuals have access here. Is that needed? And let's go pass along an alert so you can take action from there. We even have integrations with things like ServiceNow or Jira to create tickets to go ahead and do that as well. So in short, I would say we're focused on the insights there. In the very near future, we're going to think about how do we actually do more remediation and do some more blocking and access controls as a result of that. But we believe that the technology ecosystem that we've developed will really help customers respond more quickly to events where there's overprivileged access. And that's really a new term that we're going to kind of coin in the industry called zero trust data access, which ultimately is the end game for everyone.
It sure is. That sounds very intriguing. Can't wait to hear more about that in the future. So the answer is stay tuned, everyone, right? Okay, we are just about out of time here today, Chris. I wanted to ask you one final question. And for those who have been truly piqued by your presentation, who are now super interested in Cyera, and based on the amount of questions we're getting, that is a ton of folks here. What is the next step they should take to find out more?
Absolutely. Come to our website, cyera.io, request a quick demo. We'll get you set up. We've brought in some pretty incredible people from lots of the top security providers out there, like the Zscalers and the Netscopes of the world, CrowdStrikes of the world, and we're happy to help. So it's a really slick solution. It's easy to use. We're happy to connect you with some of your peers as well that are using the technology as well. And in any way that we can help you, we're certainly looking forward to it.
That sounds great. I think there's going to be a lot of response here. Chris, thank you so much for being on with us today and for showing us what Sierra is doing and for building the most important security company in the world. You know, congratulations on that goal. Can't wait to see it happen, right? So once again, thank you so much for being on with us. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure's mine.
Okay, folks. So that is a wrap for the presentations today. In the meantime, though, I have got to give away the final $300 Amazon gift card of this event. And the winner of the last one for today is Vincenzo Vaccarella from Illinois. Congratulations to you, Vincenzo, and to all of today's winners. We're going to be in touch about claiming your prize, so sit tight. All right. What a fun event we had today. I enjoyed it a great deal. And if you did too, you might be thinking this is the kind of thing that would work for your company, for your solution or platform. If that is the case, please let us hear from you so we can help determine which of our hundreds of events each year would be a good fit for you, or a specific custom developed event. We can do those too. In fact, we do lots of those every year. So if you're interested in us doing something like this for you, let us know. Reach out to connect@actualtechmedia.com, and one of our friendly folks will be right back with you. Okay, so wanted to also let you know we have another great event tomorrow that I am thrilled about. You can see the title up there. It's all about securing and managing Kubernetes and containers. Hard to find a hotter topic these days, and many of us, including me, would like to learn much more about it. So this event starts at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time, June 12th. That is tomorrow, Wednesday. If this looks good to you, sign up as soon as you can. And with that, folks, we are wrapped for this event today. On behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank all of our presenters for putting together these awesome presentations, for the Q&A insights, and I want to thank all of our participants for making this possible, including Rubrik, HPE, Aruba Networks, and Sierra. And last but never least, I want to thank all of you for being here with us, with me. I love it so much being here with you and talking with you and interacting with you. It really is the highlight of my day, and I look forward to it every time, and I can't wait to see you in the next one, folks. That concludes this event. Have a great rest of your day.